He who fears being conquered is sure of defeat. Napoleon Bonaparte. Most people believe risk is about danger. Avoid it, minimize it, run from it. They see risk as the enemy. They're wrong. Risk isn't danger, risk is opportunity. It's the space between where you are and where you want to be. Calculated risk, that's the engine of progress. It's the tool that separates those who stagnate from those who advance. It's not about recklessly throwing yourself into harm's way. It's about understanding the odds, analyzing the variables, and making a conscious choice to bet on yourself. Those who blindly avoid risk are often the ones who end up losing the most. They sacrifice potential gains for a false sense of security, trading a chance at a better future for the illusion of safety in the present. This is not wisdom, it's fear masquerading as caution. The calculated risk equation isn't a simple calculation. It's a framework for thinking. It's about weighing potential rewards against potential losses, but more importantly, it's about understanding the asterisk likelihood asterisk of each outcome. This is where most people fail. They focus on the magnitude of the potential loss, letting fear paralyze them, without truly assessing the probability of that loss occurring. A catastrophic outcome with a minuscule chance of happening shouldn't carry the same weight as a moderate loss with a high probability. The equation demands objectivity, a clear-eyed assessment of the situation, free from emotional biases. It requires you to see the world not as you feel it is, but as it actually is. Consider the seasoned chess player. They aren't afraid to sacrifice a pawn to gain a strategic advantage. They understand that short-term losses can lead to long-term gains. They've calculated the risks, assessed the potential rewards, and made a conscious decision to accept the sacrifice. This isn't recklessness, it's calculated aggression. It's the hallmark of a strategic mind, the ability to see beyond the immediate and anticipate the consequences of each move. This is what sets them apart from the amateur, who clings to every piece, fearing any loss, ultimately sacrificing their chances of victory. The key is information. The more you know, the better you can assess the risks and rewards. This means doing your research, gathering data, and analyzing the situation from all angles. It means understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and knowing your limits. It means being honest with yourself about the potential pitfalls and being prepared to adapt your strategy as new information becomes available. Blind faith is not a substitute for informed decision-making. Intuition can play a role, but it should be tempered with logic and reason. Trust your gut, but verify. Furthermore, the ability to learn from failure is crucial. Not every calculated risk will pay off. There will be setbacks, losses, and moments of doubt. But it's in these moments that you have the opportunity to learn and grow. Analyze what went wrong, identify the mistakes you made, and adjust your strategy accordingly. Don't let failure discourage you, let it empower you. See it as a valuable lesson, a stepping stone on the path to success. The only true failure is the failure to learn. Those who avoid risk also avoid the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. They remain trapped in a cycle of stagnation, never truly realizing their potential. Embrace the discomfort. Calculated risk often involves stepping outside of your comfort zone, venturing into unfamiliar territory and challenging your own assumptions. This can be uncomfortable, even frightening. But it's in these moments of discomfort that you grow the most. It's when you're forced to confront your fears, push your limits, and discover what you're truly capable of. Don't let fear hold you back. Recognize it for what it is, a signal that you're about to embark on something important, something that has the potential to change your life. Ultimately, the calculated risk equation is about taking control of your own destiny. It's about refusing to be a passive observer and instead becoming an active participant in shaping your own future. It's about understanding that success is not guaranteed, but it is possible if you're willing to take calculated risks and learn from your mistakes. It's about having the courage to bet on yourself, even when the odds are stacked against you. Because in the end, the greatest risk of all is not taking any risks at all. The greatest risk is living a life of quiet desperation, never knowing what you could have achieved if you had only been brave enough to try. The psychology of calculated risk delves into the intricate workings of the human mind, exploring the interplay between fear, ambition, and rational thought. It's a landscape where intuition clashes with analysis, and where the pursuit of reward is constantly tempered by the specter of potential loss. Understanding this internal battle is crucial for mastering the art of calculated risk-taking. At its core, the psychology of risk is about perception. Two individuals can be presented with the exact same opportunity, the same set of facts, and the same potential outcomes, and yet arrive at completely different conclusions about whether or not to proceed. This divergence stems from their individual risk tolerances, their past experiences, and their unique cognitive biases. One person might see a chance for significant gain, while the other focuses solely on the potential for catastrophic failure. The key is to identify your own biases and to compensate for them, ensuring that your decisions are based on objective analysis rather than emotional impulses. One of the most significant psychological hurdles in calculated risk-taking is loss aversion. Studies have shown that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equivalent value. This innate bias can lead to overly cautious decision-making, preventing individuals from pursuing opportunities that, while carrying some risk, also offer substantial potential rewards. Overcoming loss aversion requires a conscious effort to reframe your perspective. Instead of dwelling on the potential downsides of a decision, focus on the potential upsides. Quantify the potential gains and losses, and then objectively assess whether the potential rewards outweigh the risks. It's also helpful to remember that losses are a natural part of life, and that even the most successful individuals have experienced setbacks along the way. The key is to learn from your mistakes, adapt your strategies, and continue to move forward. Another important psychological factor to consider is the role of cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts that our brains use to simplify complex information, but they can also lead to irrational decisions. One common bias is the confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and to ignore information that contradicts them. This can be particularly dangerous when evaluating potential risks, as it can lead us to overestimate the likelihood of success and underestimate the potential for failure. To mitigate the effects of confirmation bias, it's essential to actively seek out dissenting opinions and to challenge your own assumptions. Surround yourself with people who have different perspectives and who are willing to point out the flaws in your reasoning. Be open to changing your mind when presented with new evidence. Furthermore, the concept of mental accounting plays a significant role in how we approach risk. Mental accounting refers to the way we categorize and track our finances. We often treat money differently depending on where it comes from and what we intend to use it for. For example, we might be more willing to gamble with money that we won in a lottery than with money that we earned through hard work. This can lead to irrational decisions, as we fail to treat all money as fungible. To overcome the pitfalls of mental accounting, it's important to treat all of your resources as a single, unified pool. Avoid compartmentalizing your finances and making decisions based on arbitrary categories. Instead, focus on the overall impact of your decisions on your net worth. The fear of regret is another powerful motivator that can influence our risk-taking behavior. We often avoid taking risks because we're afraid of regretting our decision if things don't go as planned. This fear can be paralyzing, preventing us from taking action even when the potential rewards are significant. To overcome the fear of regret, it's important to remember that regret is a natural part of life. Everyone makes mistakes, and there's no way to avoid regret entirely. The key is to learn from your mistakes and to move on. It's also helpful to remember that inaction can lead to regret just as easily as action. In fact, many people find that they regret the things they didn't do more than the things they did do. Confidence, while often seen as a positive attribute, can also be a hindrance to calculated risk-taking if it's not tempered with humility and realism. Overconfidence can lead to reckless behavior and a failure to adequately assess the potential risks. It's important to maintain a healthy dose of skepticism and to constantly challenge your own assumptions. Remember that even the most successful individuals are not immune to mistakes. Humility allows you to learn from your failures and to adapt your strategies accordingly. Ultimately, mastering the psychology of calculated risk is about developing a mindset that is both rational and resilient. It's about understanding your own biases, managing your emotions, and learning from your mistakes. It's about having the courage to take calculated risks, even in the face of uncertainty, and the resilience to bounce back from setbacks. It requires a commitment to continuous learning and self-improvement, and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. By cultivating these qualities, you can transform your relationship with risk and unlock your full potential for success. The path to calculated risk-taking is not about eliminating fear, but about understanding it and managing it effectively. It's about transforming fear from a paralyzing force into a source of information and motivation. It is about learning to see risk not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth and advancement. Consider the strategic maneuvering of media empires. Sumner Redstone, the media mogul who built Viacom and CBS, exemplified calculated risk in a particularly aggressive form. His entire career was punctuated by bets that seemed audacious, bordering on reckless, yet were ultimately underpinned by a deep understanding of market forces and a ruthless willingness to exploit them. Redstone wasn't merely participating in the media landscape. He was actively reshaping it to his advantage, often through hostile takeovers and aggressive negotiation tactics that left his competitors reeling. Redstone's playbook was not about playing nice. It was about identifying undervalued assets, often companies mired in internal conflict or failing to adapt to changing consumer preferences, and then leveraging his financial muscle and strategic acumen to acquire them. The risks were substantial. These acquisitions often involved enormous debt, and the potential for failure was ever present. But Redstone's calculation wasn't based on blind faith or optimism. It was based on a meticulous assessment of the target company's potential, the competitive landscape, and his own ability to turn the situation around. He understood the underlying fundamentals that others missed, and he was willing to bet big on his own judgment. This calculated ruthlessness was not simply a matter of financial analysis. It was deeply intertwined with an understanding of human psychology. Redstone was a master manipulator, adept at exploiting the weaknesses and insecurities of his rivals. He understood that business was a game of power, and he was not afraid to use every tool at his disposal to win. He would use the media itself as a weapon, publicly discrediting rivals to weaken them, leaking information to destabilize them. All of this was done strategically, not emotionally. This wasn't personal, it was business. The risks he took were not random gambles. They were carefully considered moves in a larger game. He knew that the media landscape was constantly evolving, and he was always looking for ways to stay ahead of the curve. This required a willingness to take risks, to invest in new technologies, and to adapt to changing consumer preferences. But it also required a deep understanding of the industry's underlying dynamics and a ruthless willingness to exploit them. Redstone's success was not simply a matter of luck or talent. It was the result of a calculated and relentless pursuit of his goals, even in the face of adversity. He viewed setbacks not as defeats but as opportunities to learn and improve. He adapted, he evolved, and he always came back stronger. The key to understanding Redstone's approach is to recognize that he wasn't just betting on companies. He was betting on his own ability to manage them effectively. He was confident in his own judgment and his ability to assemble a team of talented executives who could execute his vision. This confidence, however, was not based on arrogance or hubris. It was based on a deep understanding of his own strengths and weaknesses and a willingness to learn from his mistakes. He sought out dissenting opinions, challenged his own assumptions, and constantly refined his strategies. Redstone's approach also highlights the importance of resilience in calculated risk-taking. He faced numerous setbacks throughout his career, including legal battles, financial crises, and personal tragedies. But he never gave up. He persevered through adversity and emerged stronger than ever. This resilience was not simply a matter of willpower. It was the result of a deep-seated belief in his own abilities and a willingness to learn from his mistakes. He viewed challenges as opportunities to grow and improve, and he never allowed setbacks to derail him from his ultimate goals. He was, above all, a survivor, and his success was a testament to his unwavering determination and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. His approach wasn't for the faint of heart, but for those willing to embrace the principles of calculated risk-taking. Redstone's career offers a valuable lesson in the art of strategic maneuvering and the rewards that can be reaped by those who dare to bet big on themselves. His moves weren't always popular, but they were effective. The weak fail not because they lack ambition, but because they misjudge risk. They see only the potential reward, blinded to the intricate web of consequences that every decision sets in motion. They leap before they look, driven by emotion rather than calculation, and their failures are not accidents but inevitabilities. This isn't about lacking courage. It's about lacking the discipline to see the board clearly, to understand the opponent's likely response, and to anticipate the chain of events that will unfold. The trap is believing that risk is a simple equation, that a high potential payoff automatically justifies the gamble. The weak fixate on the upside, failing to account for the downside, the potential for catastrophic loss that can erase years of progress. Consider the poker player who goes all in on a weak hand, convinced that bluffing will intimidate his opponents. He sees only the immediate reward, the pot of chips, and ignores the potential consequences, the loss of his entire stack, the damage to his reputation, and the psychological blow that can cripple his future performance. He has failed to calculate the true risk, the probability of success versus the severity of failure. A calculated risk-taker would assess the situation with cold detachment. The strength of his hand, the tendencies of his opponents, the size of the pot relative to his stack, and the potential for future opportunities. He would weigh these factors carefully and make a decision based on reason, not emotion. The weak player, driven by ego and a desire for instant gratification, ignores these crucial considerations and plays a losing game. He falls into the trap of believing that bravado can compensate for strategic weakness. This pattern extends beyond the poker table and permeates every aspect of life. The entrepreneur who launches a business without conducting proper market research, the investor who buys a stock based on hype rather than analysis, the employee who speaks out against his boss without considering the potential repercussions, all are falling into the same trap. They are prioritizing short-term gain over long-term stability, allowing emotion to cloud their judgment and neglecting the fundamental principles of calculated risk. The weak crave immediate gratification, and this desire blinds them to the inherent dangers of impulsive action. They are like moths drawn to a flame, oblivious to the destructive power that awaits them. The antidote to this trap is not to avoid risk altogether, but to approach it with a disciplined and analytical mindset. It requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge the potential for failure, and to develop strategies for mitigating risk. The strong understand that every decision is a gamble, but they strive to make informed gambles where the odds are stacked in their favor. They are not afraid to take calculated risks, but they are also not afraid to walk away from situations where the potential downside outweighs the potential upside. They understand that patience and discipline are essential for long-term success, and they are willing to sacrifice immediate gratification in pursuit of a greater reward. The weak often confuse recklessness with courage, believing that taking unnecessary risks demonstrates strength and determination. But true courage lies not in blindly charging forward, but in carefully assessing the situation, identifying potential threats, and developing a plan of action that maximizes the chances of success. It requires a willingness to learn from mistakes, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to persevere through adversity. The weak give up easily, discouraged by setbacks and failures. The strong view these challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, and they use them to refine their strategies and improve their decision-making skills. The trap, therefore, is not simply a matter of misjudging risk, but of lacking the mental fortitude to approach risk with a disciplined and strategic mindset. It is a failure of self-awareness, a lack of understanding of one's own strengths and weaknesses, and an unwillingness to learn from experience. The weak are doomed to repeat their mistakes, falling into the same traps again and again, while the strong learn from their errors and emerge stronger and more resilient. They actively seek feedback, embrace criticism, and constantly strive to improve their decision-making process. They understand that calculated risk-taking is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of learning, adaptation, and refinement. This relentless pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement is what separates the winners from the losers, the strong from the weak. The difference lies not in inherent ability, but in the willingness to embrace the principles of calculated risk and to cultivate the mental discipline required to apply them effectively. This discipline is built, brick by brick, from past experiences, each success and failure serving as a lesson in the ongoing education of a strategic mind. The strategic mind understands that risk is not an enemy to be avoided, but a tool to be wielded. It is a force that can be harnessed and directed to achieve specific goals. But like any tool, risk must be handled with care and precision. The first step in mastering the art of calculated risk is to understand the true nature of the situation at hand. This requires a deep and unbiased assessment of all available information. It means questioning assumptions, challenging conventional wisdom, and seeking out alternative perspectives. The strategic thinker does not rely on gut feelings or intuition. They rely on data, analysis, and careful consideration. They meticulously weigh the potential rewards against the potential costs, considering not only the immediate impact, but also the long-term consequences. They understand that every decision carries a certain degree of uncertainty, and they strive to quantify that uncertainty as accurately as possible. This involves identifying potential pitfalls, assessing the likelihood of their occurrence, and developing contingency plans to mitigate their impact. The strategic mind does not simply hope for the best, it prepares for the worst. It anticipates potential problems and develops strategies to overcome them. It understands that success is not guaranteed, but that careful planning and preparation can significantly increase the odds of achieving the desired outcome. The process of evaluating risk also demands a clear understanding of one's own capabilities and limitations. It is crucial to be honest about one's strengths and weaknesses, and to avoid overestimating one's ability to handle a given situation. This requires a high degree of self-awareness and a willingness to seek out feedback from trusted advisors. The strategic thinker is not afraid to admit when they are wrong or when they need help. They understand that seeking guidance from others is a sign of strength, not weakness. They surround themselves with people who can provide honest and constructive criticism, and they actively seek out diverse perspectives to challenge their own assumptions. They are constantly learning and growing, and they are always striving to improve their decision-making skills. This commitment to continuous improvement is essential for success in the long run. The world is constantly changing, and the challenges that we face are becoming increasingly complex. To thrive in this environment, we must be adaptable, resilient, and constantly willing to learn new things. The strategic mind embraces this challenge, viewing it as an opportunity to grow and evolve. Furthermore, the ability to detach emotionally from the potential outcome is paramount. Fear and greed are powerful motivators that can cloud judgment and lead to irrational decisions. The strategic thinker understands this and strives to maintain a cool and objective perspective, even in the face of high pressure. They approach each decision with a clear and level head, focusing on the facts and avoiding emotional biases. They understand that emotions can be valuable sources of information, but they must be carefully scrutinized and not allowed to dictate the decision-making process. They develop techniques to manage their emotions, such as meditation, mindfulness, and cognitive reappraisal. They learn to recognize when their emotions are running high and to take steps to calm themselves down before making a decision. This ability to control one's emotions is a crucial skill for any strategic thinker. It allows them to make clear and rational decisions, even in the most challenging circumstances. The best decisions are rarely made in the heat of the moment, but rather through careful consideration and analysis. The Machiavellian approach to calculated risk emphasizes pragmatism and the ruthless pursuit of desired outcomes. It recognizes that the world is often a competitive and unforgiving place, and that those who are unwilling to take risks will often be left behind. This does not mean advocating for reckless or irresponsible behavior. Rather, it means understanding the rules of the game and playing them to one's advantage. It means being willing to make difficult choices, even if they are unpopular or morally ambiguous. The Machiavellian strategist prioritizes results above all else, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goals within the bounds of the law and ethical considerations. This approach requires a high degree of cunning, deception, and manipulation. The Machiavellian strategist understands that people are often motivated by self-interest, and they are skilled at exploiting these motivations to their own advantage. They are masters of persuasion, able to influence others to see things their way and to act in their best interests. They are also adept at concealing their true intentions, using misdirection and disinformation to keep their opponents off balance. Ultimately, the calculated risk equation is not a simple formula, but a complex and dynamic process. It requires a combination of analytical skills, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking. It is a skill that can be learned and honed over time, but it requires dedication, discipline, and a willingness to learn from experience. Those who master the art of calculated risk are able to navigate the complexities of life with confidence and achieve their goals with greater efficiency and effectiveness. They are the ones who shape the world around them, rather than being shaped by it. They are the ones who seize opportunities, overcome challenges, and leave a lasting legacy. The path to mastery is not easy, but the rewards are well worth the effort. The ability to assess risk accurately, make sound decisions, and execute those decisions with precision is a skill that will serve you well in all aspects of life. It is the key to unlocking your full potential and achieving your dreams. It is the difference between being a passive observer and an active participant in the game of life. Embrace the challenge, cultivate your strategic mind, and unlock the power of calculated risk. History is replete with examples of empires rising and falling on the tides of calculated risks. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization built on military prowess and strategic expansion. Their legions marched across continents, conquering vast territories and subjugating diverse peoples. Each campaign, each battle, represented a calculated risk, a weighing of potential gains against potential losses. The decision to invade Gaul, for instance, was not taken lightly. Caesar understood the risks involved, the logistical challenges of supplying an army across long distances, the ferocity of the Gallic tribes, and the potential for political opposition back in Rome. Yet, he also saw the potential rewards, the acquisition of new territories, the enrichment of Rome, and the enhancement of his own personal power and prestige. He meticulously gathered intelligence, assessed the enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and developed a comprehensive battle plan. He understood that success was not guaranteed, but he believed that the potential rewards outweighed the risks. This calculated approach to war allowed the Roman Empire to expand its influence and dominate the Mediterranean world for centuries. They understood the value of intelligence, of reconnaissance, and of understanding the terrain before committing to a course of action. They understood that every decision carried a consequence and that a miscalculation could lead to defeat. However, even the most successful empires can fall victim to hubris and miscalculation. The decision to invade Russia in 1812, made by Napoleon Bonaparte, stands as a stark example of a calculated risk gone wrong. Napoleon, at the height of his power, believed that he could defeat the Russian army and force Tsar Alexander I to submit to his will. He assembled the Grande Armée, a force of over 500,000 men, and marched into Russia with confidence. He underestimated the vastness of the Russian territory, the harshness of the Russian winter, and the resilience of the Russian people. He failed to account for the scorched earth tactics employed by the Russian army, which deprived his troops of supplies and forced them to fight on empty stomachs. As the French army advanced deeper into Russia, its supply lines became stretched and its morale began to crumble. The Russian winter arrived with its full fury, inflicting devastating losses on the already weakened army. The retreat from Moscow became a desperate struggle for survival, as the French soldiers were harassed by Cossacks and ravaged by disease. The invasion of Russia proved to be a catastrophic blunder that ultimately led to Napoleon's downfall. It demonstrated the importance of accurately assessing all the factors involved in a calculated risk, including the intangible ones, such as the morale and determination of the enemy. He failed to consider the psychological impact of the relentless Russian winter, the vast emptiness of the landscape, and the unwavering commitment of the Russian people to defend their homeland. The psychology of calculated risk extends beyond the battlefield. It permeates all aspects of human endeavor, from business to politics to personal relationships. Individuals who are able to assess risk accurately and make sound decisions are more likely to succeed in their endeavors. They understand that risk is an inherent part of life, and that avoiding risk altogether is not a viable option. Instead,